Hey everybody, Kyle Goeth here from GoatFromReviews.com and the Goat From Reviews YouTube channel. I just finished a screening of the new Hellraiser film, which is now available on Hulu. This is not a remake. This is I guess Clive Barker referred to it as a reconfiguring of the myth, directed by David Bruckner. If you don't know, I've talked about David Bruckner a bunch. I think he's great. His short film in VHS, the first film, is really, really good. Probably the best in any of the VHS films. He also did The Ritual, which I think is one of the most underrated horror films in recent years, as well as a film called The Night House, which I liked. A lot of other people seem to really love that one. I liked it, so I'm positive on a lot of his work. His take on Hellraiser is, at the very least, it's the best Hellraiser since Clive Barker was last involved. Clive Barker was involved in the first 4 films, which I think are all pretty great. And then from that point on, when he left the project, they had to keep making movies to secure the rights to the franchise. So 5 through 10 of the sequels were all basically other films that were reconfigured into being into Hellraiser films. So you can see in those sequels that they didn't really understand what they were working with. They didn't really get it. And so they just thought, well, Pinhead's scary. Let's make him a villain every single time. And while he is kind of villainous, usually what works in the Hellraiser films is the human villains that end up getting in too deep. And that's kind of what we get here again. Now, Bruckner tends to focus a little bit more heavily on the Cenobites in this film than I expected. They are more of the overstanding villains than any of the human characters would be. But there is still a human story at work here. I think the lead actress, Odessa Azione, I don't know. I've never seen anything else that she's in. I thought she was great though, because she's kind of on the outskirts of any normal final girl. She's not kind of like, I don't want to say she's not prettied up, because that makes it sound like I'm judging her like that way, but she's a recovering addict, and she's not like, she doesn't always have the perfect hair when she's going into a situation. She's not always dressed. Doesn't look like she's showered up in a while or like really taking care of herself, because she's a recovering addict, kind of like the Jane Levy character in the Evil Dead reboot as well, which is kind of similar to this film in that they both have recovering female addicts who are, no one believes them because of what they're going through. And so I think Odessa does a really great job as Riley. I liked a lot of the other characters involved in the narrative, because they introduce them to us pretty early on in the film. We get to know our kind of like everyone living together in this apartment, and then watching them as this puzzle box basically gets like more and more towards its final step. I really love what they did with the puzzle box, because I always kind of criticize the puzzle box in the other Hellraiser films. It's a puzzle box, and yet it's only really got the whole, like, you pull the thing up and twist it, and then it's got that weird, like, chicky chick that comes up and goes back down. But, like, it always seemed like a lot easier of a puzzle box than, because we only saw people finishing it. We never really saw it actually having multiple, like, stages. I really like what they did with the puzzle box in this film, where it's more of a, it's the same box at the beginning, but then as it goes on, the film becomes, kind of takes it and molds it in a way where each step along the process has more connection to what's going on, I guess. And they seem to mean something more to the narrative. I also really like the Cenobites in the film. There's the decision to make the Cenobites all, instead of having the BDSM thing, it's more of like the skin is their clothing, so how they've been tortured and such. I think the Cenobites have a little bit more character. They're in the narrative a little bit more frequently, so I really enjoyed how they used the Cenobites in the film. I thought the design on them were all pretty cool. I wish the film wasn't so dark at some points, because I wanted to see the cool creature design, but the lighting on the Cenobites is pretty dark throughout most of the film, so I kind of want to get some behind-the-scenes footage where I can see what these things look like in their costumes. The lead Hell Priest, it's played by Jamie Clayton. I'm a huge fan of Jamie Clayton from the show Sense8. I watched that show on Netflix. I thought it was a great show, and I thought she was fantastic in it. If you have not read The Hellbound Heart, Pinhead, or the Hell Priest, is described as kind of intergender, where it is, the Hell Priest is not a creature of male or female, but it tends to have feminine attributes. And then I think the Scarlet Gospels, which was the sequel to the novel The Hellbound Heart that Barker wrote in 2015, described the character as basically having all stage of gender and sex removed from them. That's how kind of, mutated from their original form they were was that they don't have a sex or a gender. So if you got a problem with a trans woman playing Pinhead, you got to go back to your source material, man. This is not the same character. And a lot of people said, like, oh, well, you know, Doug Bradley, like when he played the character in Hellbound, we got to see the human version of Pinhead before he was Pinhead. Yeah, that's that series. This is a reboot. This is a different thing. Get past it, man. Like, all I want is a good actor playing these roles. And you know what? Jamie Clayton's a good actor. I really like that she... I like her performance. I wish that the makeup was a little bit more like pulled back. I just felt like sometimes her performance was a bit more restrained. I think I'd even read somewhere that she had trouble moving in the costume because it was so heavy and like tied down. I would have liked to have seen her have a little bit more mobility in her face and in her body movements as well. But what we got is pretty solid as well. I just hope if they do another one, if they make a sequel to this, give Clayton a little bit more to work with, because I think she does a great job at dialogue, line reading, and overall presence, the way that she moves her face. But I think it was a little restrained behind all that makeup. What else is there? Yeah, this is a reboot, well, kind of a reboot. It's not a remake. That's another thing I really enjoyed about it. I think the best way to restart a franchise like this is not to do the Frank, Julia, Kirsty story again. Don't do it. Because I think looking at the Hellbound Heart, looking at that first 1987 film, there's not a whole lot that I think I could do as a filmmaker to make that better. Even with time against the 87 film, I don't know that you could improve that story. I'm sure somebody out there has a great idea. I'm sure it could be done. I don't know what you could do, though. So having Bruckner, with 2 screenwriters he worked with on The Night House, having them craft a story with David S. Goyer that is basically a new story that takes a lot of the elements and moves them around, works really, really well. I was really, really taken with that idea because you don't have that comparison piece. I think the trouble with a film like, let's say Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. The trouble with something like that is you have the original and you have so many elements to compare it to. And I really like the Halloween that Rob Zombie did. But like, look at Nightmare on Elm Street. That film tries to change the characters up so much with the remake that you shouldn't even call them Nancy and all the other character names as they were in the original, because it just makes you want to compare them. Same was true with the Child's Play remake. The movie's so different from its original. Why would you have a Detective Norris and why would you have an Andy Barclay? Like, just pick new names so that we don't associate them with the originals and make those kinds of comparisons, because it's tough. You want to try and see a movie on its own merits, but then you get something like this where it's like we're basically telling you who these character archetypes are, and that makes it really frustrating and difficult. So I'm glad this is a new story, more like Friday the 13th remake, where it's a new story. You almost could see it as being in continuity with a couple of little changes to the mythology. And that works for it, because now we have a new version of this tale to keep making films with, and I can't wait to see another one of these. I hope they do another one. I hope Bruckner either returns as director or is at least involved in the production process going forward, because I would love to see a Hulu Hellraiser series of films. Bring me a new one every year or two and just show me some more messed up stuff, because I quite enjoyed this film. I would say it's, at least the best Hellraiser film since Clive Barker was originally involved back in the first 4 films. So I'm going to need some time to compare it to the others, so I'm not really sure about that. But let me know your thoughts on the 2022 Hellraiser film directed by David Bruckner down in the comments below. While you're down there, please like and subscribe to the channel. There are 2 free things that you can do. Help to support my channel and make sure you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. You can also check out goatfilmreviews.com for my many written reviews. We got 31 Days of Horror going on right now. You can find Goat Film Reviews on Facebook. You can follow me personally at Almighty Goatman on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And you can see my show, Kyle and Nick on Film. We have new episodes Mondays, Thursdays, and Scary Movie Saturdays. The links for all that is down in the description. Check it out. We'll see you next time.